Hello there, and welcome to Gooner U, where there are no degrees because the learning never stops. I'm Dove, a TA here at Gooner U, and my friend Keith is our stalwart distinguished professor of Arsenal and football studies. Enter our classroom as we discuss the week's news involving Arsenal, Premier League, Champions League, international football, and sometimes MLS because we're Americans. This week, Arsenal played a single match, enjoy it while it lasts, against Everton at Hill Dickinson Stadium. Hello, Keith.
Hello, Dove, and a happy festive fixtures to you and all of our audience.
Happy holidays. As we record this, Hanukkah is drawing to a close. We're recording on the last night of Hanukkah, and this will post on the last day of Hanukkah. And then, Christmas and New Year's not too long after. So happy holidays to everyone. Yep. So
2025, man. 2025.
Yeah, hard to believe it's almost over. You're outside of your normal confines.
Yes, it's a little more sparse in here. There is some interesting stuff in here, but this is a small annex in my parents' house where I am for the holidays. So not my usual haunt, but just the job.
Be sure to say hi to everyone for me.
I will, and they say hi as well, of course.
One item to follow up on from last week, I had jokingly kind of criticized Wolves as being a little bit lazy with their alternate kit design, that it's really just hitting the inverse button, taking a negative image of their kit from their main yellow, because it looked to me like the opposite of yellow, which would be blue. I was a little bit wrong, though. Apparently, I went to do that actual thing, like in Photoshop, hit Command-I, and do the actual inverse to illustrate my point when I was talking about that. And lo and behold, I was wrong. So it was really like a pure blue when you invert their home jersey. What happens when you invert their cyan, as it turns out, is you actually get something surprising. And I will try and drop this in here. You actually get Arsenal's red. And it's kind of striking when you see Jesus and one of the Wolves players next to each other, and it looks like we've swapped jerseys. And it just felt kind of poetic that their away jersey is the opposite of our home jersey, that we're at the top of the table, they're at the bottom, and their away kit is an inverse. It's kind of funny.
This is the hard-hitting content you come for on this show. It is a weird picture, man. That is a little trippy. Ignoring like the Wolves player is in full run, so his hair is going back, which looks impressive when he's his colors. But that's an interest. It is a weird picture to look at, man. That is a weird picture to look at.
And of course, the purple pitch.
Well, yeah, that. Well, I mean, once you accept everything else, the purple field makes a lot of sense.
We had the Carabao Cup draw this week, right?
Yes, that came earlier in the week because everyone else in the quarterfinals played this week. Our game, of course, was postponed to the following week when we'll come play this coming Tuesday. But everyone else played, and so the draw was made. Potentially our semifinal. The winner of our game against Crystal Palace will play Chelsea. The first leg in January will be in Stamford Bridge, and then we'll play the second leg in the first week of February. Chelsea will be away from home. Again, hopefully that's us. You do have to beat Palace on Tuesday, so not gonna count our chickens on that one. But the other semifinal will be Newcastle United and Manchester City, which, you know what? I'm not upset to not play either of those two teams. I mean, 2 games against Chelsea is going to be a pain. But, obviously we've talked about our difficulties with City. Obviously we've talked about our difficulties with Newcastle. Obviously last year's semifinal didn't go so well. I mean, at the end of the day, you draw who you draw, and this is a competition that I don't love that they still do a 2-legged semifinals. That's really annoying because it's going to be another set of 2-week games coming up in potentially. But again, we still have to beat Palace on Tuesday. Right. I don't want to. I don't want to get ahead of ourselves on that one. But that's it. We could be looking forward to a trip to Chelsea in mid-January, and then having them back at the Emirates on the first week of February. But we'll see. Technically that is up in the air still.
All right. And then there's a rumor about Pep Guardiola, maybe possibly a little bit more than a rumor. You want to share that?
Right. So this came from David Ornstein. So this is not like totally out there. Of course, by the time you're listening to this, you probably heard this story. We've got a lot of chatter in the league over the weekend. Came out on Thursday, which of course is when I was flying. So I, trying to work through airport Wi-Fi and all sorts of stuff like that. But so the story is there are sources outside the club, but who have connections with Manchester City or have reason to have knowledge of the situation. Believe there is a possibility that Pep Guardiola will leave at the end of the season. It would be a bit of a surprise because he did just sign a contract extension. However, that sort of thing kind of happens. And, 10 years is a long time anywhere. It's the amount of time he spent at Barcelona. It's the amount of time that's a long time. He's talked about wanting a break at points. But that's not the most interesting part. That's kind of interesting part. But the real interesting part was that one of the names near the top of City's list was Enzo Maresca, who you may remember as the manager currently at Chelsea. He was an assistant to Guardiola at City for the last few years, then went to Leicester City, where they won the championship and took them into the league. And then he jumped ship as soon as they joined the league to go to Chelsea, where he's been now for 2 seasons. Mm-hmm. It would be an interesting move. There are, well, I don't know how to put this. Chelsea's a club where the manager is kind of always on the hot seat. He never is not. And Chelsea is probably more than any of the really big clubs is the one that kind of likes to churn things over. But at the same time, the idea that from Chelsea's perspective that their manager would effectively be poached from them by Manchester City is not something they're going to love. Right. And I wonder if it puts them in a weird position where they'd be like trying to keep a manager they don't love just to not be the club that loses him. I don't know. That's probably overthinking this all a little bit. Who knows? Maybe Guardiola is just like idle. It's just some idle thinking. And then we hit the middle of the title race in March and he's like, well, of course I'm going to stay here for 3 more years. Right. Who knows? But that was an interesting story that came out. And again, it didn't just come out of nowhere. David Ornstein is as good as it gets when it comes to inside information in the Premier League and teams like that. So it's an interesting one. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know about that one. I would still find it a little surprising, all things considered, but it's not entirely out of the realm of possibility, I think is the best way to say it.
Right. For comparison's sake, how long has Arteta been at Arsenal now as manager?
This is now 6 years. In fact, it was 6 years. I think it was 6 years to the day yesterday during the Everton game was brought up. I believe was when he was appointed. He didn't manage straight away. He didn't take over until Boxing Day. But I believe, and I'd have to look this up, and I don't want to do that live on air, but I believe they even said the game he watched as the manager, but before officially taking over with Freddie Ljungberg still on the sidelines, was actually a game against Everton, I think.
Oh, okay. Huh.
Which is interesting insofar as, that is the Premier League club he played with before coming to Arsenal. It's probably the one he has the most connections to outside of Arsenal.
Right.
David Moyes was his manager there, and they have a good relationship. And, everyone talks about Arteta as the student of Pep Guardiola and in Manchester City. And obviously that's had a great deal of influence on him and his style. But so is David Moyes and the way he does things. And I know he gets a lot of guff for the way his tenure at Manchester United turned out. Dave Moyes is a good manager, and I'm not at all surprised that the Everton game was a scrappy, difficult affair, as away trips to the blue side of Liverpool tend to be.
Yeah. Well, that's a great way to begin talking about our match at Everton.
First thing to say is it was not, I noticed you caught yourself there, not Goodison Park.
Yeah, just when I think I'm getting a handle on where the other, 19 or so, and with the relegated clubs or the recent promotions, it's not ever going to be quite 19 that I'm on top of, but maybe the 15 to 16 that I really know. I thought Goodison Park was one of them, and not anymore. But I guess I'll start to remember Hill Dickinson.
Yes, the shiny, glittering new stadium, Hill Dickinson Stadium, not the Hill Dickinson Stadium. That is only reserved for, well, apparently just about every other stadium in the league, like the Emirates or the Etihad or or
Right.
the Ohio State. I think that's different. But yeah, it sure looked nice though.
Yeah. I wonder if I wonder how much does that matter? Like, it seems stadium culture in England watching soccer compared to American sports, like, aside from like maybe at halftime grabbing a pint or something, like, it seems like people, and I found this even just watching soccer here compared to other sports, it seems like people generally kind of stay in their seats and watch the whole match just because there isn't, it's like, in contrast the most, I guess, to baseball, where it's just constantly like every half inning you got to warm up and there's like constant breaks, right? And famously, like the seventh inning stretch is like a break that's like built into the game. Like in soccer, it's halftime and that's it.
Yeah, a lot of that, there's some cultural elements to that. There's also just the nature of the game that when you play for 45 minutes, 50, 55 minutes, stoppage time, but you just kind of play through there and the clock continuously runs. I mean, I was at a professional and American football game last weekend, and there are constantly breaks,
right?
Delays, commercial breaks. Baseball obviously is a very slow moving game. It's meant to be. It is almost meant to be enjoyed rather than like invested in some ways.
It's not a stadium; it's a park.
Yeah, right, the ballpark.
Right.
We'll have to find for you the famous bit by George Carlin.
Well, I'm well aware. Oh yeah,
yes, the difference between baseball and football.
Yes, the gridiron.
The object of
pastime.
The object of baseball is to run home. Right.
Football is played in a stadium. Baseball is played in a park. The object in football is to march downfield and penetrate enemy territory and get into the end zone. In baseball, the object is to go home.
Now, I actually did a deep dive years back and listened to all of George Carlin's comedy albums. so yeah, I'm very familiar with his oeuvre.
Yes. But yeah, it's... Well, I'll say this. There are places you can tell where the construction of the stadium matters. The big example of this, and this, I sort of saw some stories floating around about this, is West Ham. West Ham United for years played at the Boleyn ground, which was an intimate facility, rather small, always packed it out. And then they moved after the 2012 Olympics to the Olympic Stadium, the London Olympic Stadium,
right?
It's called the London Stadium. And it's just not, the benefit is they got more seats, but because it's a track facility, like that's really what, it says Olympic Stadium, that's arguably the centerpiece event that it held was track and field. Then it holds track and field events. There's a giant track around the field, which of course removes the fans even further away. Contrast that with any other stadium we're seeing. Think about how many of them where the fans are like right there, right behind the goal.
Right.
And at West Ham, they're just so far removed. And they said it does something to the atmosphere. We've talked about places, some of the more intimidating environments like Anfield, right? There's something about those places and those fan bases. West Ham has a serious fan base. And the stadium just doesn't seem to work for them. Now, who knows? Maybe on some level it's doing okay. And the reason that, I don't want to put this on the fans. The fans are the reason why West Ham stinks. No, West Ham stinks because they made some bad player acquisition decisions and, some bad manager picks. I don't want to get into the business of blaming the fans for the team's performance, but it does feel like they're not going to get the same kind of help from the fan base, the fans in the stadium that they were getting before because of the distance. And yes, you have more people, but because they're further away, it kind of loses something. Anyway, Hill Dickinson Stadium doesn't seem to be like that at all. It seems like a great environment, a great atmosphere, as much as you can tell those things watching on TV. But I think the songs came through loud and clear for both fan bases. All the comments are, certainly the commentary from the television people was very positive about the stadium and its environment. It certainly looks nice right there on the river.
Yeah.
As opposed to being a stone's throw away from Anfield, which when I learned that was really weird. I did not imagine that.
Yeah. They feel like such different clubs, like to have them so geographically close. Yeah.
Everton's a proud old club. Everton's biggest problem is that they play in the same city as Liverpool. that they are a proud club. They've won not the Premier League, but they've won the Football League. They've been the champions a bunch of times. They're one of the original members. They're in that club of teams that has never been relegated from the Premier League. So they've got a lot going for them historically. But the problem is they share the city with Liverpool, who's won the league more than anyone else, won the Champions League more than anyone else in England. They've won this, they've won that, they won everything. And so it's hard for Everton. You're always sort of
they're like the younger sibling.
Yeah, in some ways they're kind of always, it's hard to sort of measure up on that. I mean, I remember, when I started watching, this was now 15, 20 years ago. It was the big four at the top of the league. It was Arsenal, United, Chelsea, and Liverpool. And Everton was the fifth. And it just felt like Everton was always right on the cusp of just breaking into that top four. And then City got bought by, by Abu Dhabi, and, Spurs, reinvented themselves actually as a competent organization. And, you could start to see some of the building happening there, and Everton fell back a bit. Now we'll see. I think, not that we're going to turn this into Toffee U for a moment, but I do think I think they have a good manager. I like Moyes, and I feel like he's a good fit for them. I know he struggled when he was at United, but frankly, United's got a lot of problems that Sir Alex Ferguson papered over. I feel like he fits Everton really well as a manager, and I think they may be in a position in a couple of years where they want to think about improving on Moyes to take an additional step, but that's going to require a lot of changes and a lot of different things that'll have to happen internally. And I think Moyes is a good manager to keep them well away from relegation, which is where we've seen them in the last couple of seasons.
Right. Yeah. So this match, it was kind of, it went back and forth a little bit more in the first half, but there were long stretches of kind of not shooting, trading possession back and forth, punctuated by a few potential and actual penalties. Mm-hmm. So the first one was in the 23rd minute. Victor Gyökeres was approaching the goal, about to head in a ball, and goes to ground, knocked over, it seemed like, by the player behind him. What did you make of that one?
That, I gotta be honest, in the moment, I was a little bothered that didn't get looked at as closely as it did. I mean, does he go down softly? Oh, yeah. But, I mean, first off, as a striker, that's what they're told to do. Of course they go down when they feel contact in the box. Mm-hmm. And, I mean, the guy gets his arm right into his back. I'm sorry, that's a push. And the ball wasn't that far away. I looked at that, and I was a little perturbed that didn't get at least a closer look than it got. I was a little bothered by that. And I think the commentators really said that best on that one. You've seen it given. Mm-hmm. You have, haven't you? So I was a little perturbed by that, and what I really wanted was for us to score off the corner kick. And then we didn't, and I was a little more frustrated. And then they blew the whistle, and
right.
Now we're on to penalty decision number 2, which wasn't really much of a decision, was it?
Yeah, no, that was definitely the most black and white of these situations. O'Brien leaps to try and defend against the corner kick, and his hand, for some reason that only he knows, is up above his head. That's not something you typically see in a leaping soccer player.
Oh, no. It wasn't his hand. It was both of them. It was like he was watching volleyball. He was up and...
Right.
I mean, it was interesting because, of course, you're watching on the broadcast and they're kind of far away from the box, so you don't see a lot. The ball comes in, and it's only Calafiori who's immediately like...
Right.
And I first thought he was expecting to get fouled, or he had thought he'd been fouled. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. And nobody's saying anything. That's weird. And then they showed the replay, and I'm looking at it going, okay, where's the foul? Where's the foul? Oh, my gosh.
Yeah.
He just palms it. Yeah, that's a cut and dry, stone cold. Yeah, I mean, honestly, the most objectionable thing about it wasn't even the handball, which is just kind of so shocking that it happened. It was the degree to which, like, the Everton players, particularly Tarkowski as the captain, were arguing about it afterwards. I'm like, what are you arguing about? What is
yeah.
What exactly is the...
Well, for me, it was just like, so the ref goes to the screen, reviews, and he comes back and announces his decision. And the camera cuts to O'Brien, who has the most bewildered look on his face. Like, what is wrong with you? You knew before anybody else in the world that you did this. Why do you look so surprised?
Yeah, that was. I don't want to say I've never seen it before, but I'm trying to think if it, I mean, I'm sure there are people who can point out to moments. I feel like there was a couple weeks ago, Van Dijk had one with Liverpool where his hand was like in this weird position and he got penalized for it. A
lot of times you can kind of see how it happens. Like, yeah, when it's in a weird position, it's some kind of counterbalancing that you're doing. But up above your head, I don't know what that's doing for you. It's bizarre.
Yeah, that one's. Yeah, I mean, do we want to talk about the penalty itself? I mean, I know we have some penalty calls, but do we want to talk about that one, the penalty, or we'll save that for a bit?
Yeah, penalty kick, may as well. So
yeah, I mean, we did that thing where one guy stands over the ball and then he hands it off to another guy, and I didn't notice that. So Odegaard was standing there with the ball. I mean, that, which honestly I would have been was the more surprising part than who he handed it to, because our typical penalty taker is Saka, and so if you're looking for someone to stand there and take a penalty, Saka's the guy who would stand there. So it was a bit weird that it was Odegaard. And then he hands the ball off to Victor Gyökeres, which, I'll be honest, I wasn't super surprised about.
As it happened, as they were confirming the penalty, I was actually watching this one, watching the replay with my son, and I had asked him, so who do you think is going to take it, Saka or Gyökeres? I think that conversation is why I wasn't watching what was going on the field. But he thought Gyökeres would take it. I don't know. We've had situations before since Gyökeres started with us where Saka has still taken it, but I could see with the way that things have gone with Gyökeres so far this season. We've talked about this with Jesus before he got hurt a couple seasons ago, that like you want to give them the opportunity to score to kind of kickstart it a little bit, like kind of get them in that mindset,
Yeah, I think the real point of comparison is Kai Havertz. I think it was it?
Maybe that is who I was thinking of.
This time 2 years ago, he got the penalty. He had struggled at the start of the season to get the penalty, and then he was virtually unstoppable in that second half. That was the spring of 24 when we lost one game after the New Year. Lost one game of the league after New Year's. So I feel like that's a lot what was going on there. We've talked about Gyökeres. I thought he was okay yesterday. Had some good moments. Had a few of those moments where he's like just a half step too late, or half step early, and it kind of messes with things. He's going to come under a lot more competition, obviously, with Jesus back. Kai Havertz, Arteta's making noises like it might be next week.
Oh wow, okay.
I've heard mixed things on that one as far as Havertz. Where's Havertz? Gabrielle, I think they said they're looking into January, like probably like right after the New Year. Hopefully that's the case. Other than that, but yeah, and Gyökeres comes up, and I'll say this: the man knows how to take a penalty.
That was really something. Yeah, I mean, Pickford guessed the right way, and there was not a thing he could have done about it.
Too high, too hard, just right. I mean, punch it in. I mean, they were joking last season during that long stretch where we couldn't find a striker, and we ended up with Mikel Merino, right? The Arscast had a joke about, what do we need? We need someone who kicks the ball hard. Like that sort of became the joke about how you score more goals. And then here comes Gyökeres, and it's like, okay.
I can do that, yeah.
He kicks the ball. He kicked the ball pretty hard. He definitely got all of that one. No keeper stopping that ball.
I mean, in other clubs, let's talk about like City, for instance. Do you know, like, do they give the ball to Erling Haaland? Is that like the typical thing when you have a clearly defined striker in that role?
Yeah, most teams usually have a clearly defined penalty taker.
And is that person usually their striker?
In most cases, it probably is.
Yeah.
Seeing as that's kind of the job of the striker. But there are some clubs that, and a lot of them have these kind of situations, sort of like Arsenal side here. Sometimes your designated taker isn't going to take it because of reasons. There are some, you'll hear this around superstitions that some guys have, that the player who is fouled shouldn't be the one to take the penalty. Like some superstitious angle to that. You never know who's nursing an injury, maybe, and doesn't want to, and it's not even the case that like he's worried. Maybe he's just worried he won't hit it as well as he needs to, or maybe someone's just not feeling right at the moment. I mean, again, it's a lot of pressure put into that moment because we talked about like the expectation of scoring in that moment is so high.
Yeah.
That's most cases, missed penalties aren't really the keeper guessing right. It's the shooter losing his nerve and, punching it into the second deck. So, or you have moments like this one where, we need to get Gyökeres' guy. We need to get going. Let's get him going. He converts the penalty, and he's converted. I think he's missed one penalty in his career. For club level. So yeah, and he's as good a pick as any, and he converts, and it's 1-0 to the Arsenal.
So the third major penalty decision came later in the match. This was in the 57th minute. There was a little bit of footsie going on between Barry on Everton side and Saliba for us.
A little bit of high footsie. Yeah, I gotta be. This one to me falls under a similar category to the Gyökeres non-call before, in that you've seen it given. I think we dodged a bullet on that one. I think the real lucky one we got was at the moment they called it no penalty. They didn't because of no penalty on the play, which was, and it's one of those. If the point of VAR of the replay is to overturn the clear and obvious error, I don't know that you could look at that and say clear and obvious that there was a penalty that when we didn't see one in the first case. If it had been the other way, if the referee had called the penalty, that 100% stands as a penalty. I believe that firmly that would stand as a penalty. I think we got away with that one. Or at least we were a little lucky there. And there's nothing much you can do there. I mean, we talked about Saliba had that that one last year where he goes in and tries to head the ball, and he heads the ball and ends up conking heads with was it Brentford? Did that happen against?
I do not remember. Yeah,
I think it was Bournemouth. Anyway, conks heads with the guy, and red card comes out. So, like, we've been on the other end of that one with Saliba. I think we got away with it a little bit, but I'm also not, given my grumblings about the Gyökeres non-penalty, I'm not going to lose a lot of sleep over missing that one either.
Yeah, I mean, so taking it from your point of view that it looks like we dodged a bullet, maybe that's a case of the referee just kind of balancing things out. One non-call deserves another non-call in a borderline case, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, that's something fans sort of believe in, the idea of balancing the calls. And most referees will tell you that's not what they mean when they say. Usually when you see a case of balancing out calls, usually it'll happen where you'll see, and I've seen this a lot in hockey, for example, where like a team will take like 3 penalties in a row. And sometimes the referee will then kind of call a ticky-tack, what looks like a ticky-tack one on the other team. Not necessarily because he's trying to even up, but just because there's sort of innate sense of like, something feels off about this. And the referee is never thinking, they got away with one there, so maybe they won't get away with it. Like, the referees don't think like that. At least based on my my everything I've heard or seen from referees. Perhaps in the grander karmic sense.
That's what I was going to say. So even if that's not what he was thinking, it makes me feel better about the officiation overall. In my mind, it balances it out. But that said, I don't necessarily share your point of view on that one. Like, I looked at that as I felt justified that he didn't call it. It was accidental contact, not severe, clearly going after the ball. The leg comes from behind him in a way that there's nothing he could have done. Like, to me, most of the time, and I realize that there are exceptions to this, but most of the time when a foul is called, there's something reasonable the player should have done or at least known to do instead, right? Like, what should he have done instead? He was going after the ball. The other guy got to it first, came from behind him. There's nothing he could have done. Now, I realize, like, we were talking about that header, like, where they conked heads. Yeah, sometimes it's just bad luck and there's nothing to be done about it. But most of the time, you would think that a foul is an indication that you should have done something differently.
Yeah, but as we said, like again, as you said, sometimes that happens. I guess the my last thought in the karmic justice of the whole thing is I'm fairly certain Everton was the club who had a player step on Tomiyasu's face a couple of years ago. So, as far as I'm concerned, they can take the non-call there. So a step on his face without a call, by the way. So yeah, okay. I'm not inclined to be all that forgiving when it comes, to be all that bothered by it in the
right.
scheme of things. And we'll talk about that sort of in general in terms of the flow of the game in a little bit. But yeah, I don't think I know people are kind of iffy about, or kind of frustrated by this game, and I share some of the frustrations. But let's not pretend that Everton was hard done by losing 1-0. They were outplayed today or yesterday.
Yeah, and so 1-0 was the ultimate result. We really only had a couple other notable close calls that almost could have raised it to a 2-0 victory. We had Trossard took the first one, and oh boy, did I think that one was going in. It just, as it was unfolding, it just looked like, oh, this is the moment. He's there, he's ready, and Trossard usually does get those.
Yeah, that was one. Man, if he scores that's a goal of the season caliber. Like the ball movement between several players coming to Trossard, the turn, the shot. Oh, it was almost so perfect. But it wasn't. Hit the post.
Yeah, it just clanged off the far post and went. I don't know if it went immediately out of play, but it fizzled. Yeah,
yeah. That's one of those. He buries that there, man. That's game over. That would have been ball game for sure. And then, yeah, we had another one a little bit later, a little give and go where, bouncing ball ends up it was Zubimendi, right, who punches it into the post as well.
The same post, yeah.
I mean, I think that goes a little bit into the game as a whole. I know people are a little frustrated because it was only 1-0. And, when the game started, we were technically in second. Although I hate the live table in the middle of weekends like that. This is dumb. But, I mean, technically at that point, City was in first place because they had more points because they had won earlier.
Right.
They beat West Ham away, which... But, yeah, I obviously we'd have felt a little better had it but if that one goes in, it's 2-0, and I don't think anybody is particularly perturbed by it. We'll be slow at times, sure, but... I think those kind of moments sort of this game very easily could be. Now, again, how many times did we say that last year, right? Boy, Arsenal really should be winning this game 2-0, 3-0, and then they come the other way and it, the ball ends up in the back of their net. See, Wolves last weekend, right?
Right.
We could easily say that same thing. But overall, I thought we played... I don't think 1-0. I don't think a 1-0 win is an unfair result. I don't feel like I'm not. The Wolves game, we kind of walked away from it. Whew, boy, I don't know about that. I don't feel that way at all about this game.
Yeah, it's like a part of me feels, I don't know if guilty is the right word or self-conscious, but it's like you kind of cringe a little bit that your one goal happens to be a penalty, but it's like, well, that's the game.
Still counts.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, was Everton really threatening with that one shot on goal they had? Right. and I don't want to speak too glibly because, after all, Wolves scored on their first shot on goal. But I generally felt like we played well overall in this game. I think we did that thing where we limited this felt a little bit more like the typical kind of defensive performance that we were seeing earlier in the year, where we just it was very much like a python, right? We just kind of strangled the life out of the game. And sure, could we have been a little more aggressive in places? Yeah, but overall, I think we looked relatively composed defensively. None of the sort of the panic clearing that we saw against Villa or Wolves. Right. I thought we were very controlled. We were moving the ball around. Yeah, we were moving it slowly, but I don't know. I don't. My memories of last season are informing that, but I get it. But at the same time, I felt like we had a pretty solid grip on the game overall. I don't know. What'd you think?
No, yeah, definitely. There was a period that I was worried toward the very beginning. Like the game got away from us very quickly in the very beginning. They were very threatening. And then in the run up to the penalty, like we really turned things around. That's why we drew the corner. Like we were starting to really threaten them more. So, and then it was pretty much ours to lose from that point after. One quick thought, you mentioned the panic clearing, and it reminded me, I've been reading through this book, Soccer IQ, with my son the last few months. We've been doing like a chapter a night every now and then. And it's basically, he's this guy who coached, he coached a bunch of different teams in the U.S. The most notably, I think, was Georgia Bulldogs women's soccer team. And so he wrote a book just kind of accumulating his wisdom in like small digestible nuggets. Like each chapter is 1 to 2 pages.
Oh, what was it?
And Soccer IQ.
No, the author's name.
I need to look it up. I don't remember.
Is that Glenn Crooks?
That doesn't sound familiar. I don't think so. Here,
he used to coach women's teams. No, it was somebody else. But yeah, he used to coach a bunch of women's teams, and now he's actually the radio voice of New York City FC. And I just listened to an interview with him last week with a New York City podcast, and just talking about it. And he talked about it because he had just come out with a book, sort of the same kind of thing, years of accumulated wisdom. So it's Dan Blank is the writer's name. I don't know what that is. I'm sure he's a nice guy though.
So very interesting things. It's cool for a lot of what he talks about. He has short YouTube videos illustrating the concept with game footage from his girls who are playing. He also does a funny thing that kind of reminds me of the offsides explanation in Bend It Like Beckham, where he has videos where he has like a salt and pepper shaker and I guess a red condiment shaker or something he uses for the keeper. But like, and so anyway, what specifically reminded me of the panic clearing that you were talking about is in the chapter we just read, he talks about sometimes that is the right thing to do, and it's important to know when it is the right time. Not to say that it was the right time for Arsenal last week. I know what you're talking about, and I'm on the same page with you. But he specifically noted when you're a coach who wants to get your players possessing the ball all the time, like Arsenal does, a dominant possession team, that you need to constantly be reminding your defenders to be on the lookout for when you're holding on to it and you're about to give it away because you're prizing possession over everything else. Sometimes you do just want to clear it into the other side. So as a practical note for practitioners more than anything else, that was something that's been on my mind.
And you will see that we talk about sort of clubs and their evolution. So I'm thinking back to watching about a decade ago now, the earliest days of New York City, especially under Patrick Vieira, who was their second manager. They were going to play out of the back, keep her passing to the center backs and moving the ball. And that was how they were going to play. And there were a lot of instances where they were getting chewed up on that because the other team keyed onto it pretty quickly. And and Vieira was dogmatic about it. And of course, fans are flipping out. Oh, what's happening? Why are we responding? And part of what he was trying to instill in the team at that stage was, this is how we play. And you need to learn how to get out of those situations. There are ways to do that in the way we've constructed this. I don't think, I think a lot of what we saw, because Arsenal is obviously in a very different stage of their development right now as a club. This is, I think, much closer to the final form of what Arteta's been envisioning. And I think in this case, a lot of the bad clearances we were seeing the last couple of weeks, or failure to clear, I think a lot of it was much more due to tiredness, physical and mental exhaustion. Notice how fresh everybody looked with a week off to not play this week. And they talked about it sort of during the game, about how it was a good moment of refreshment for the players to sort of get them a little bit back on track. And I thought our performance, overall, taking into account of the other things, how the performance overall reflected it's certainly a more mentally alert Arsenal. They had a few couple instances, guys ran into each other, which was super awkward. Couple of misplaced passes, but overall, I thought they were much more solid and much more controlled, especially defensively.
Oh yeah, and even more in the second half than in the first half. The whole second half, Everton didn't really do anything that made me question the outcome. So yeah. One other thing you pointed out as we were planning the show that I subconsciously recognized but didn't give form to. We didn't use all of our subs. That was an interesting choice. What do you think is going on there?
So yeah, just as a note, they only used 3. They have the 3 sub windows, and they only used one sub in each. So 65th minute, Gyökeres came off for Gabriel Jesus. 80th minute, Martinelli came on for Leandro Trossard. And then in the 88th minute, Mikel Merino came on for Martin Odegaard. I honestly think a lot of this is a little more deliberate when we think about the next upcoming weeks. We talked about this kind of ridiculous stretch we're on with 2 games a week, of which this is kind of the kickoff to. I think that's with an eye to that. Remember our next game on Tuesday's Carabao Cup, which we're going to have to treat a little bit differently. We're going to see some rotations. I imagine we're still going to see Kepa back in net, but we're going to see a little bit more rotation in the outfield lineup. And I think also, as much as Arsenal wants to win everything, you can kind of afford, to play a Premier League game a little differently over the course of the long season than the cup game, where you're kind of, I expect this almost to go for it a little more. In part because of the opposition. We're playing at home against Palace as opposed to away to Everton. But also just, we have the personnel to do that, and we can't. This is one game. If you want to advance, you got to win.
Yeah,
and
single elimination. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. So that makes sense as an explanation, where you're going to kind of see managing the month more than managing just the match.
Exactly. I mean, again, it's a good reminder that that's the position we're in. I mean, you think about some of the guys we had on the bench who didn't get into this game. Eze didn't play in this game. Lewis Skelly, Madueke. We have a couple of
Marino.
guys. You seeing Marino.
Oh, no, he did.
No, Marino did.
Never mind. Yeah, very, very late.
Yeah.
Right. I forgot.
I mean, the one place we're really sort of feeling the thinness in the lineup is on the defensive side, and I think we're going to see Saliba and Hincapié because we don't really have as defenders. Maybe you see Lewis Skelly for Calafiori, but I don't know. I mean, Ben White we know is out. I think he said about a month probably.
Did you notice in the first few minutes, Hincapié had something going on with his shoulder? He was like moving his arm around. I was like, oh, no, don't even.
Oh, yeah. That was, I told guys running into each other. He and Calafiori hit each other. And at first I was worried about Calafiori because he went down and he was limping a little bit. He got back into it. He ended up being fine, or at least could run around.
I didn't see that. Okay.
But yeah. Hincapié went down hard and for a few minutes was doing this, and it was. But hey, you don't score goals with your shoulder, so.
Yeah, well, tell that to Martin Odegaard. Yeah. Was it his shoulder? It was some kind of arm issue. Was that his shoulder? He was out for a while.
It was, coming down. He came down hard a couple of times. Yeah, I mean, it's. I'm about to say the best thing about the Everton game, other than the 3 points, was not having any additional injured players. So
yes,
knocking
keep
on
that
the wooden
going.
desk.
Yeah, right. Who was your player of the week / match?
I want to give a shout out this week to David Raya. I thought he did a good job. Obviously, I think the defense, especially Saliba, plays a big role in the clean sheet. But I thought Raya was really good today. He was only really had to make one opportunity. They only really had one shot on goal. Everton did. He handled cleanly. Otherwise, overall, I thought a generally commanding job in his box. Distribution was generally very good. There were one or two, but I frankly there was one where he kicks the ball out to Hincapié, who kind of lets it roll past him and go out of bounds, which I think that was more Hincapié's mistake than Raya's. I thought Raya was pretty good. He's been good in a lot of places, over the course of the season, and I kind of want to shout him out because overall, I mean, we can point to a lot of players. I know you'll have your picks. I think we can point to a lot of players as having solid, if unspectacular games.
Yeah, I specifically noted a couple moments where he deflated an attack, like catching crosses, like we've talked about him doing, where he did that, like from, I forget if it was from a corner or from open play, but it was like toward the beginning of the second half. They had mounted some attack, and nope, he was there, and a few times that he was, just stopping it before it became something that could have been worse. So.
I think that's what Arteta has described him, right? He doesn't allow bad things to happen, as opposed he doesn't stop bad things, he doesn't allow them to happen, or something to that effect. sure.
Yeah, so good call. For me, it was tough. There were a few players who caught my attention, like honorable mention to Trossard and Gyökeres for, the penalty taken well and the near shot that was really, really nice that almost went in, but being in good position to take it for Trossard. But ultimately, I'm going to land on Martin Odegaard. He's been back for, a few weeks now. He's been getting back to what we expect from him, moving the ball around, facilitating, coming up with good ideas, showing up in good spots to kind of give the second or third degree assist that we need sometimes. And it's good to see him back and fully functional.
Yeah, he's a guy. I think it's good to see him if he could get going in terms of scoring goals too. Obviously, if anybody can get going in terms of scoring goals, that's kind of been, of course, if you get some forwards and strikers healthy, that would help also. But yeah, I thought Odegaard had a really nice game. I think we could shout out Declan Rice and Bukayo Saka as well, just for doing Declan Rice and Bukayo Saka things around the field. Saka almost scored another Olympico. He curled that way.
Yes.
Speaking of balls that almost went in.
Yeah, Pickford grabbed that one if I'm remembering right.
Yeah. That was. And I think Odegaard. I think it was Odegaard who had the opportunity, the shot that Tarkowski was on the goal line and cleared away. Like that one, I was already up off the couch. I was like,
I know.
That one I thought that one I thought for sure was in. But
really quick hot take from you: least favorite player of the match, Tarkowski or Pickford?
Ooh, that's tough. I respect both of them. I do think they're both solid players. But yeah, Tarkowski's one of those guys because especially with all his time with Burnley under Dyche, and then when Dyche went to Everton, he followed them there. It's just annoying to play against. As some pointed out, he always seems to play well against Arsenal. Like I respect the guy, but he's not. We're not talking first 11 in the Premier League kind of player, and yet he always has a solid game against us. So very annoying.
Yeah. Pickford just gets on my nerves for some reason. It's like he's just always yelling, just always looks angry. Yeah, I don't know. I don't like the guy. I think also some grudge too from back when Ramsdale was our keeper, and like this is the guy that England picks instead of Ramsdale. Come on.
Yeah. See, this is the next evolution of you as a sports fan. You learn how to hate as a sports fan.
I know that's been lacking. I know.
It's it's the people always ask me because of course we want to be careful with words like hate and stuff. I say it's sports hate. I don't want anyone to get hurt. I just never want to see them be successful. That's all. I just never want to see them win. Like the Dallas Cowboys. I don't want anyone to get hurt. I just want them to lose forever.
Stepping on Legos aside, right?
Yeah.
One thing that has been a question on my mind, this is the type of question that's come up on the show before, where in my mind, as a programmer writing computer apps, I think of edge cases and like, if the rule is this, like what is its most extreme version and what would happen in that case? And my mind went there a few weeks ago, and this has kind of been on our list to approach when maybe it was a week that we didn't have as much other stuff to talk about. And this week in particular, given that this relates to handballs and penalties in particular, it was a good week to ask you. So my question is this: if someone shoots on goal from open play, the defensive team makes a handball foul in the box, but the ball continues into the net, so a goal is scored. How is that handled in soccer in contrast to, let's say, basketball, where I know if you're fouled taking a shot and you score the basket, you're still given one free throw instead of two. You're still given some kind of compensation or opportunity for compensation instead. Would you ever have a penalty kick on a successful shot attempt in soccer?
So I tried to look through the laws of the game, and I tried to find the wording on this exactly so I could quote it for you. I can't do that, but no, that's a goal. That's a goal, and that's it. If anything, the foul or the sort of comes from the use of the hand as part of the denial of a goal scoring opportunity. And again, some of it goes into like hand positioning. Like if the player's got his hands in a natural position or on his side or something like that, and it hits them, okay, then it's just incidental contact. It could very well be an own goal, depending on the trajectory of the ball and all that. If he tries to do a thing and like sticks it out, well, if it doesn't go in, it's a red card for denial of an obvious goal scoring opportunity. And in this case, it didn't work because he didn't deny the goal. So in those cases, I think the way you would treat it is playing advantage.
Yeah.
That, think about when a foul is committed, but if the attacking team or the fouled team still has the ball in an advantageous position, they'll generally let the play continue. And of course, when you're you watch on the field, you'll see the referee usually with two hands like this. Sometimes you'll see it with one hand because he's chugging with the other one to keep up with the play. But there, the idea is the advantage gained from playing the ball is greater than if you were able to line up the set piece opportunity or the penalty, the free kick. In that case, given the speed with which that would all happen, like by the time the referee even notices the handball and is able to pull the whistle up and blow the foul, ball's already in the net. Well, then, okay,
right.
Then he's blowing his whistle for a goal. So, like, it's in that sense, I just don't see. If it goes right in, the goal, I think, supersedes everything else.
Yeah, I imagine the overriding principle is no harm, no foul seems to be kind of the general spirit in soccer.
I think that's probably the best way to think about it.
Yeah. We're going to have a quick dessert today. We haven't done a dessert topic in a while, so this is a kind of a more frivolous conversation, but something that's been on my mind to ask you. I can tell you are at least almost as excited about the international game as the club game. And it's been something I've been wondering about it. Like, let's say that someone forces you to make a choice for some diabolical reason that you can only follow and be aware of one or the other, the international game or the club sport. Which would you ultimately pick? Which of those do you get more out of? Do you enjoy more?
I think I'd have to stick with the international game in that regard. And it's not so much because there's anything wrong with it. Obviously, North London forever, all that. But I mean, the international game, the World Cup and the U.S. national team was sort of my gateway into the sport and opened up everything else. And there's just something I'm kind of fascinated more than interested in some of the discourse surrounding the World Cup and all of that. And there's a lot of conversation there's a lot of interesting commentary. A lot of it centers on FIFA and the decisions they make and the role they play. And sort of where a lot of people wind up, though, is, man, FIFA's the worst. They're terrible, corruption, et cetera, et cetera. The World Cup is just so awesome. It's just such in a sense, the games themselves are almost better, just are able to overwhelm all of the other outside noise and space. And they just, the experience of the whole thing. I am completely jazzed by all this. But again, I'm also, I'm a big fan of like international sporting events. Like the Olympics are happening in February. I freaking love the Olympics. I think they're fantastic. And I mean, they're awash in all sorts of really sketchy stuff, to be honest. But, to me, that's where I got that was my entry into all of this. And so, I spent, a number of years, not even being able to name 10 clubs in the Premier League, but still following the sport and knowing of players and having some insight into that. And so to me, if I had to pick, I would stick with the international game.
Before you started following Arsenal, did you do what I've mentioned one of my coworkers does, where you kind of follow American players across their exploits in the club sport who are playing for Team USA?
Not really. So a lot of Americans at that point were still playing in the US.
Okay.
So it's kind of an interesting thing. If you go back to brief history of American soccer, if you go back to like the early mid 90s when I picked this up, we're predating MLS. Like in the lead up to the 94 World Cup, the US team basically spent a whole year together just playing friendlies. And there weren't international windows in the same way that there are now. The schedule was much more free form, but they played a bunch of these games because they didn't have clubs. Like some of these guys didn't actually have the US national team was their club. And some of that, so there's like remnants of Team America that existed in the old NASL in the 70s and 80s. But that was right about the point too. A couple of those guys got plucked away to play in Europe. Some of those guys did have some European experience already. That's the 94 World Cup. 96 is the beginning of MLS. A lot of those guys play in MLS. And you really start to see the movement away from MLS and over to Europe a lot more in the mid 2000s, which is about the time which is when I was in London and I started following Arsenal. So it kind of, they were around and I knew about them. And again, it's, I don't want to say the internet exploded at that point. Obviously it's 2006, but you're moving into an age where internet access is even more widespread. There was a lot of ways that it became easier to track those kinds of things.
Mm-hmm.
And also you were able to track those kinds of things. It took me a long time to really warm up to MLS. And not that I didn't like it, I enjoyed it. I liked that it existed, but it was hard. I think if we had think about your experience, right? If we had just sat down and said, let's talk about the Premier League every week, that would have been a little tough for both of us. Me, because, I only really want to talk about one team in the Premier League. That's not true. I want to talk about two teams. I want to talk about Arsenal and then I want to make fun of Spurs. But also, for you, let's just follow the whole league. Okay, but why do I care about all these and that? And I think there's a value in having, the club to kind of...
Yeah, your tribe.
Yeah, to sink your teeth into. And that's the window you see everything. Same with MLS. I really only started following MLS when New York City came in.
Right.
And then so that was I knew some things. I had some general ideas. I knew some of the big clubs and all of that. But it's once City comes in, it's okay, here's what I think about all these other different things. It became a much more... I actually started to understand some of the stuff that was going on as opposed to just kind of hearing about it bits and pieces all over the place.
Right. Cool. Up next is going to be our match tomorrow against Crystal Palace. Tell us about that.
Right. So it'll be Crystal Palace in the quarterfinals of the Carabao Cup. You may remember this game was moved to the later week because of fixture congestion on the part of Palace. Now it's fixture congestion for both of us, but that's just the way this goes this time of year. I don't know. Palace has been apparently hit a bit of a slump. I know we talked about some of the strength they had. It's weird. This week we play Palace in the Cup and then Brighton in the league, when if we flash back a couple of months, it was Brighton in the Cup and Palace in the league.
I forgot that. Yeah.
Yeah. But we're at home in this one, so I feel pretty good about this. Obviously, we know Palace has some capabilities. I wouldn't be surprised if we see Eze in particular for this game. Maybe get a bit more Jesus. Hopefully we see. I imagine we talked about a little bit more rotation in the side in terms of making sure we get more players in. But I would really like to win this one. Winner gets Chelsea in the semifinals. So that's Palace on Tuesday, and then on Saturday. Yes, on Saturday, Arsenal is home to Brighton Hove Albion. All of them. The Seagulls, I really don't know what to make of this one. I had to look up exactly how Brighton are doing this season, because I don't really know. Since we saw them, just looked up now, the end of October. Wow, that was a long time. Feels like it was so long ago when we played them in the Cup. Let's see. They currently sit, doing this live and in person, they currently sit, looks like 10th in the table. Yes, it appears they're currently 10th. Yeah, I'm sorry, 9th. I said it was 9th in the table. Right around Palace, 2 points behind Palace in the standings. So, and right around, and tied with, even on points with Everton. So, not an easy game, but not a nice one to have at home. Hopefully we can sort of keep the positive momentum going from this one here. A couple home games, couple chances, feel good about a couple wins.
We didn't actually talk much about the table, how things are going outside of Arsenal. It's a good check-in point because we're basically at the midpoint of a season, roughly, right?
We're close. We've played 17 games in the league, and there's 19 and half of them. So we're almost there. But yeah, Christmas has sort of been a good marker, partly because, of course, the holiday. It's a nice day. It's always the same time of year. And does really have a good marker. It's really interesting. ESPN had this story today, or at least I read it today. Maybe it was posted today, so I wasn't sure when it came out. But they looked at teams. They were looking at particularly Arsenal and Wolves, which makes sense because they played each other recently. In particular, looking at the fates of teams that were in first place at Christmas and in 20th and last place at Christmas. We'll start with Wolves on this one. Since the Premier League was founded back in 91-92, there has been a team in last place every year. Happens every season. Of the teams in last place on Christmas Day, 4 of them avoided relegation. Not all of them finished, some of them finished 18th or 19th, but only 4 of them survived to the next season, including Wolves in 2022. I do not see Wolves doing that this year. I don't see that happening.
That's interesting. Knowing that they were that close to relegation back then helps inform, combined with this season, helps inform me why you would have picked them last season to be relegated, that they'd been so close in recent history.
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing that helped them, and there's a couple clubs we could point, and Wolves is one club we could point to. There are a couple others we could point to in this instance. One of the reasons they avoided relegation was because the promoted teams the last couple of years have been so bad. And that is not the case this year. I think the other thing in those cases where you see a lot of clubs survive, that Wolves team, by the way, finished in 13th. So they really made a jump. But what you see in a lot of cases is a lot of congestion at that point. So they're 20th. But if they pick up 4 points, all of a sudden you're 15th. Right. It's tight. It can be tight down there. So that allows for a lot of that kind of movement. That ain't this Wolves team. That is not what you're going to see. No. I'm pretty sure they lost again this week.
They did.
So currently they're on 2 points through 17 games. They are 9 points back of Burnley in 19th.
Yeah, this week they lost to Brentford.
Yeah, they're going to rebuild themselves in the championship next year. Maybe they will. They're certainly not they obviously have made enough bad decisions that they're going to be relegated this year. But the more interesting one, I think, is at the top of the table where Arsenal currently resides. Winning being top on Christmas is not necessarily a good thing. In fact, actually 3. Well, let's see. I'm looking at this. Over the last since 2017, Manchester City was first, and it was first on Christmas, won the league. Since then, only 3 teams over the last 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, of the last 7 seasons, only 3 of those teams have won the title. I'm sorry, no, 4. I did. Never mind. From where I was counting was 3 out of 7. So it's not as good as you might think.
So specifically, how has Arsenal done from that position?
So here's a fun one. Arsenal's been on top on Christmas, at least in the Premier League era, 4 times, and has failed to win the league all 4 times.
Ooh.
Which we're talking about an era in which Arsenal's won the league a couple of times. But they've never been top on Christmas. They've always come back. Which is interesting. I don't really know what to make of that. They also point out. So, they also point out in each of the last 5 seasons where the team that was top at Christmas failed to win it all, the team that ultimately won the title was Manchester City.
Ooh.
So
that hurts.
I get it. I get that. But again, I know we've shown some vulnerabilities lately. City has scored more goals than we have, but City scored 41 goals. We've scored 31. Okay, that is a fair distance. We've given up 10 goals and then conceded 16. They've lost 4 times this year.
Right.
That's a lot for a City team, a Guardiola City team. And look, maybe they do that thing in the second half where they just, like a knife through hot knife through butter.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I had this City team being able to do that. Maybe they will, but at this point they would have to, and we'd have to not do the same thing. And I think with some of the injured players we have coming back, I think if we can get ourselves through the festive period, which has always been a bit of a bugbear for us, the last couple seasons, I would not put it past us to go on a run. Because also City's in the semifinals of the Carabao Cup. They're in the FA Cup. They're looking to go deep in the Champions League. I think they're currently potentially looking at going in the playoff round, which is 2 additional games for them. So,
okay, right.
Maybe they're not. Maybe they are actually in the top. Hold on, now I want to look that up. I don't want to make fun of them too much before I get myself in too much trouble there. Where are they? Let's see. Oh no, never mind. They're fourth. Never mind. They'll be fine. They'll get out.
They had been lower recently.
They had been, but anyway, yeah, I think we'll be. They're a team that has enough flaws that I'm not. And look, if they do go, win, 22 out of 24, whatever it is, the end of the year, tip your cap. But I don't think this City team can do that.
Well. All right, and for anyone looking where you can stream those matches coming up this week, that's going to be Paramount Plus for all the Carabao Cup, and I think FA Cup when that's coming up also. I think those are probably on Paramount Plus also.
Maybe? Does ESPN have that? We'll double check that.
They have in the past. I think more recently it may have been Paramount Plus. We'll confirm when those come up. But for Carabao Cup, definitely Paramount Plus. And the Brighton match will be on USA Network, which means NBC Sports app for streaming domestically in the US, and full match replay the following day on Peacock. Thanks for joining us at Gooner U. If you're watching us on YouTube, you can also listen to the podcast version of our show on Apple, Spotify, and some other places. If you're only listening, try watching us on YouTube with the link in the show notes. Your homework for today is to hit the like button on this video and maybe one or two of our shorts also. We definitely always appreciate it. We record the show using Zencaster. If you'd like to try it out, you can support Gooner U by signing up using the link in the description, which also has links to everything we talked about and our socials. Again, my name is Dove, and you can find me on Twitter at Dove Frankel. With me, as always, is Keith, and you can find him in a pub watching Arsenal matches.
Merry Christmas, you filthy animals.
Reference acknowledged.